Good evening and welcome to People's Parliament, the very first one in the year 2024. It's my honor to be your host again on this first outing of People's Parliament, organized by Rescue Nigeria. Rescue Nigeria is not for profit. It is not aligned to any political party. The payoff says working together for the common good. I'll be coming back to Wale Croft, who'll be talking about Rescue Nigeria later, but let me introduce the topic, which is drug menace, impact, and solutions to substance abuse in Nigeria. That's what we're going to be talking about for the next 1.5 hours thereabouts. Let me read quickly from what's here on our flyer to kickstart the conversation. High on hope, not drugs. Let's explore impactful solutions to substance abuse and chart a path towards a Nigeria free from addiction. And your voice matters. All our voices today will be united in talking about drug abuse in Nigeria. How can we bring about long-term solutions to substance abuse in Nigeria? And I'm going to start this way. Some weeks back, late in the outgone year, I traveled from mainland to the island, and right by CMS, I saw a naked boy walking almost in the middle of the road. And my staff who was with me said to me, madam, there are plenty. I asked him, what do you mean by there are plenty? He said, if you go towards Jakonde, you go towards down like that on your way to Ekpe, you meet a lot of them who are going nuts and are roaming the streets because of substance abuse, the after effect of substance abuse. On that note, I bid you welcome again. I welcome our speakers, Dr. Ehige Ato Adayonfo, Dr. Oluwakemi Ademola Remu, and Dr. Dokun Adedeji. They're all competent people, experts in their own rights, who will be speaking to the issues that we're talking about today. Also, we're not going to be alone, me, them. You're also going to be joining in this conversation today. Welcome to the People's Parliament. I am Anike Ade, Funke Treasure. Right, if you Googled drug abuse in Nigeria, you'll find distressing statistics. The very first one that I'm going to read out, it says a report by the United Nations Office on Drug and Crime in Nigeria indicates that 14.4%, that's like 14.3 million of people aged between 15 and 64 years abuse drugs. I'll leave it at that and pan back to our speakers, and I'm starting with Dr. Dokun Adedeji, who is a member of the Special Purpose Committee of the NDLEA. He was also the former DG, Christ Against Drug Abuse Ministry. You said in our build-up to this conversation that, and I quote you, Nigeria is on the verge of a drug epidemic, and everyone must confront the scourge threatening the lives of our young people and putting the future of our nation in peril. Drug statistics may be frightening, but we can win if we stop stigma and discrimination, which discourage treatment. And parents must also be parents. Again, I'm going to give you just about 2 minutes to give us your opening remarks as we start the conversation.
Thank you very much for inviting me to this platform. And I'm very glad with the way Funke has started, which is probably the statistics. I'll just give a minute of that. You know, if we do not look at this statistic very well, we will just be wasting our time in dealing with this matter. You know, 14.4% translating to about 14.3, let's say 15 million people who have used drugs the previous year. You know, the significance I want people to know is this. I say to people when I talk, Liberia has a population of 5 million people. Mauritania has a population of 4 million people. Guinea-Bissau has a population of 2 million people. The Gambia has a population of 2 million. The total of those 4 nations comes to 13 million. Benin Republic has a population of 13 million. Guinea-Conakry has 14 million. So what that simply means in terms of significance is this. The number of Nigerians using drugs can make a nation, if you understand what I'm saying. Because if you look at the totality of those four countries, it comes to 13 million. And if Nigerians population using drugs in the past year in 2017 was 14.3 million. So it means we can constitute a nation by the virtue of the people who use drugs. And the thing that we must begin to let our people understand is a lot of people, I've been to the various drug joints across Lagos in particular. Many of them want to leave drugs. How they got in there, they simply cannot understand. But the problem is the issue that Funke also mentioned that I talking about stigma and discrimination. Somebody says to me, if I leave the drug, so what next? My parents have disowned me. How do I go back to normal family? I don't have a job. I lost my job. Who's going to take me back? And the thing is, we begin to look at them. Oh, he uses drugs. So it must be, so it must be a terrible person. That's not true. Anyone can use drugs. Today, particularly with the level of ignorance pervading the nation, a lot of people go into drugs without even knowing. And sometimes it's just one use, and then you are hung. And so the thing is, do we deny a future because of the mistake of yesterday? Because of a misadventure of yesterday, we deny them a future. No, we shouldn't. I think the time has come, and I like the fact that we want to do something about it. And I think the basic area of involvement should be at the home level, the family level. Too many families are in disarray. Most of them live together, but they are apart. Most parents don't even know anything about their children. So they don't even know when they begin to do drugs. So it's so important that there's a highlight on this. And I'm glad that Rescue Nigeria is doing this. Because I said it today where I spoke. In 5 years time, we don't do something, we're not gonna have young people anymore. We're not gonna have people in authority. We're not just gonna be able to do anything. And because if you look at the population, they said the highest rate of use is between 25 and 39. If you look at that age range, that is the productive sector of any country. So if you lose those sector of people, where's the future? Even within the church, where's the church? Even within academia and all those. So where are they going to be? So that's why I think I'm highlighting this, particularly with the statistics, so that I can get into the main discussion. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Opening remark there by one of our speakers, our esteemed speaker, former DG, Christ Against Drug Abuse Ministry, Dr. Dukun Adedeji. You've set the tone for the conversation this evening, and I'm going to be returning to the number of the population of the other countries in Africa that you have opened with. Let's move on now to Dr. Oluwakemi Ademola Aremu, Human Rights Activist, Executive Director, Choice Solution, Welfare Initiative International. Are you there, ma'am? Oh, wow. You're stepping in with this huge smile. Welcome to the conversation.
Thank you.
So your opening remarks.
I'm very happy we're discussing this. Well, we've been shouting for years, and I'm glad it's come to the front of the burner. We're beginning to know that it's time to address this issue. For years, Nigerians have, Nigeria used to be a country that we thought drug addicts were very few in between, and they just passing drugs through during the Babangida era. Unfortunately, now our children are taking them. 2017, I had the notion most Nigerians held that the drug addicts are on the streets. But working with them, I discovered that they were right in our homes. They are our children. 2 years back, I was discussing with my students in class, okay, teaching them about drug addiction. The next thing, the students told me in one of the hostels on campus that 70% of the children are doing drugs. The private universities, our children are on drugs. Beyond that, our so-called illiterate population is abusing drugs, recommended drugs. So anybody in Nigeria can just say, oh, your head is aching, take paracetamol. Now we have a lot of issues with the kidney. So a lot is going on every day. And I also think that if we're going to fight, we must take it as a combat. Everybody should be willing to tackle it. It shouldn't be them, it should be us. I've been in many programs where people talk about drug addiction and the addicts are not present. Are you asking them, do you know what they think? You know, there's something I'd love people to know that when I'm with addicts, they mock the normal people. In fact, there was a day I met so many pop artists, you know, the very many, it was their culture, it was their day, they wanted me to address them. And I went for the sensitive. I said, how about this drug issue? They looked at me, why are you talking about drug? Are you not seeing that we're very successful all over the world? People are clapping for us. I said, I'm asking about the drug issue. And they now turned to one other guy that was present and asked him, I said, did you become who you wanted to become? Was this your career, what you wanted to pursue as a child? The guy said, then was you know? And I felt like, what? Has it become something that people are proud of? So on the street, the language is different. With the generation, the language is different. They think drug is fun. So I think we need to get it to the front burner and begin to control what goes on our billboards, especially every day. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam. Dr. Oluwakemi Ademola Remude giving her opening remarks about the topic for today, drug menace, impact and solutions to substance abuse in Nigeria. In other words, on the street, the language is different. And if we're going to fight, we must take it as a combat. We'll return to you, Madam, later and take you up on these two declarations you've made. We'll go on to the third speaker, an addiction expert at the Department of Mental Health, UNIBEN, and UNIBEN Teaching Hospital is the founder, Fatima, the Addiction NGO. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome with me Dr. Ehigiato Dayonfo, and he's going to be speaking to the conversation as we start. Your opening remarks, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm glad to be here. I'm glad we are talking about this. Indeed, substance abuse has become an endemic disease in Nigeria today. And the reason for this is not far-fetched. It is because the socioeconomic circumstances that drives substance abuse is very rampant today. We have poverty, we have unemployment, and then we have the lack of education. And then, unfortunately, we are in a system where critical stakeholders, government, and captains of government-owned medical facilities are paying deaf ears to the issues of substance abuse. They continue to see substance abuse as a matter of indiscipline, as a matter of moral failing. This is unfortunate because the persons in charge of hospitals in this country are supposed to be medical doctors who ought to know better. But what we experience on ground is that they are not thinking differently from the general population. And as such, there is serious neglect of issues that has to do with especially treatment for people who find themselves in this disease of substance abuse. Now, this is highly unfortunate. It is regrettable because whereas we continue to experts appreciate that substance abuse is a chronic relapsing and remitting brain disease, stakeholders are not seeing that way. And so if you go through the length and breadth of this country, you go to federal government-owned hospitals, you can hardly find a center or a unit that handles substance use related illnesses. Even the state government, at that level, nothing is being done to cater for people that have the disease called substance abuse. And so there is total neglect. And issues of stigma continue to be rampant because of this kind of attitude. And so even those who have found themselves in this illness do not have option for treatment, which is regrettable. And meanwhile, the impact of substance abuse is something that is ubiquitous. It affects every facet of life. It affects individuals. And of course, once individuals are affected, families are invariably affected. And once families are affected, the society is invariably affected. And meanwhile, we continue to see the very ugly impacts of substance abuse every day as individuals and as a society as a whole. You hardly will find any form of crime that may not be related to substance abuse, and so on and so forth. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Adayo. Thank you so much. Addiction expert. When I saw that, I thought to myself, oh, we have people like this in Nigeria. And you actually have spoken to that notion that you hardly find a unit in both federal and state hospitals where you find a unit on, treating, substance abuse. Do you have an association for addiction experts in Nigeria? How many are you?
Well, yeah, I cannot give a figure right away, but I can say that, like everybody knows, there is a serious deficit of medical manpower in this country. And that is actually worse for areas of mental health and substance abuse. Like what I have alluded to. Now, if you go through the length and breadth of this country, there are several state government-owned hospitals that we call central hospitals, for example, that will not have a single addiction expert. So that gives you an idea of the situation. If big hospitals, first generation teaching hospitals do not have a department, do not have a rehabilitation center, that clearly gives you an idea of the severe, lack of, manpower to deal with, substance abuse. I'm a psychiatrist, who has devoted time to treatment of those who have addiction problem, but beyond the psychiatrist, there are other, manpower needs for substance abuse illness. You have psychologists, you have counselors, again, you go around the hospitals, several hospitals do not have a single, drug abuse counselor. Several do not have psychologists devoted to substance abuse treatment. Usually, clergy is a member of the team. Many hospitals do not, I don't know of any teaching hospital in this country where a clergy is employed for the sake of dealing with substance abuse related illnesses. Again, what I can say right now is that there's practically no treatment at the level of government for substance using illnesses. We are only grateful because of some NGOs and some churches and some private individuals are trying to set up one or two avenues where people that use that have this kind of illness, can go to and get some form of attention. That is the situation.
Thank you. Thank you very much. A very simple question that has generated quite rich insight into why we are where we are. If we have a serious deficit of manpower in mental health and substance abuse, and Many of our central hospitals are without addiction experts, including the first generation hospitals, and the value chain in the treatment of substance abuse does not have the right experts. As doctor said a few minutes back, teaching hospitals don't even employ the clergy, which is important in the treatment of substance abuse. The government, whether federal or state, are really not into investing in the treatment of substance abuse. Those are the high points of what Dr. Ehigiator has been talking about in the last few minutes. If you're just joining us, this is Drug Menace, Impact and Solutions to Substance Abuse in Nigeria. That's the topic we're talking about on People's Parliament today. We have three experts joining us. Let me pan back to Dr. Dokun Adedeji. 14.3 million people. We're talking impact, we're talking solution. 14.3 million people aged between 15 and 64 years old. Dr. Higiato just said to us that there's a serious deficit of manpower in mental health and substance abuse. What, in your view, should we start doing now as a solution going forward? Dr. Dokun Adedeji, please.
You know, the thing for me is that very unfortunate to admit is that we always come late to the table. When people are dealing with things, we are still dragging our feet, we don't even have an understanding. And I agree with Dr. Hidiato. Look, many doctors, medical doctors, do not even have an inkling about what addiction problems are. So you can then begin. I had to go and give a lecture at Yaba psychiatrist to some psychiatrists about this. And the other thing is, we are always thinking we lump them, people with substance abuse disorders, we lump them as psychiatric patients. So that's why you find that in many hospitals that have psychiatric department, that's why they take the drug addicts or people who use drugs. And so when they are taking, stigma follows them. And then people think, oh, he's gone to a psychiatric hospital, so he's sick. I think what we're starting to do today is a very important step. We must dissolve the ignorance that pervades the nation. Many times it's not ignorance, it's hypocrisy. A lot of people know, even some people have issues in their families knowing that these are substance abuse disorders, but they don't, for reputational reasons, they don't want to open up. They don't want to even seek treatment. And some of them who have money fly these children abroad to seek for treatment. Why is it that we always need to understand the circumstances that face us as a people? You know, you said something, I think you said something at the beginning. When Nigeria, until 2013, Nigeria was deluding itself that we're just a transit nation. When some of us were telling them that at that time, because NDLA was making it difficult for people to take drugs across, we had started to domesticate the use of drugs. Oh, they didn't believe until 2013. Then they said, oh, we're a user nation. But today we manufacture some of these drugs like methyl crystal. So the important thing that we must start today is educate our people, particularly those in government, those in authority. I know the lot of problems that India is having to convince even government personnel, even the National Assembly, that this is a major issue we should face. But I understand why the politicians do not like to do anything, because these are the instruments of their thuggery during political campaigns. So they won't like to lose those people. If you go to many places in Lagos I can name to you, you'll be shocked at the level of number of people who go this street. You said 14.3. In 2020, when Mr. Stock, who is the director of UNODC in Nigeria, spoke, he said that figure had gone to between 20 and 25. So you can begin to understand the progression of this thing. So the thing to do, in my own estimation, we need to talk. Not only talk about it, we need to begin to do something. And if we don't, if we leave the space open, people will creep in there to begin to set up all kinds of centers to make money out of the pains and of people. And so there must be standards. There must be a way in which we say, these are the issues. How do we tackle them? One thing I don't like that we do in Nigeria is the silo mentality approach to things. Oh, substance abuse is a problem. Everybody runs into substance abuse like we did with HIV/AIDS. The thing is, do we understand the fundamentals? What are the issues? What drives people to drugs? How can we help people? How can we help families to accept that this is an issue? And I've said it. If we don't do like Professor Ransom Kuti did with Fela, when he said my brother died from the complications of HIV, it was then people understood that HIV could be anyone. We must have some people who are big in society who can come and say, my son who used to use drugs, but today he's clean, like Hunter Biden did with his book he wrote, The Beautiful Things or something. The father was there. That meant until we begin to do that, identify with this, because they are children, they are husbands, they are wives, they are kids. And then so we must show that understanding of the failure and what we need to do. If we don't, when we're talking about this until 2030, when there'll be an astronomical increase in the number of people who use drugs in Nigeria. Today, somebody as young as 8 now does drugs. Are we going to wait until somebody that's just been delivered begins to use drugs? So this is a wake up call, and that's why I'm very pleased that I'm involved in this, and then we can begin to take it down. And then the media, we need the come interview me. Can I take you to blog and do a feature? Go on from everyone.
I lose you in between your speech, off and on like that, but it's okay. I got the meat of what you were saying, that we need to resolve the ignorance, we need to resolve the hypocrisy. We need to begin to see that Nigeria is no longer a transit country, but a consuming nation of drugs, and it's gone beyond 14%. It's actually between 20 and 25% now. And yes, I agree with you, because the statistics I gave at the beginning was 2018 statistics, although quite a number of newspapers are still quoting that in 2023. I can see the Vanguard, Premium Times, they're all quoting the 2018 statistics, but it's okay. I know, on a lighter note, but not too lighter note, during the week I saw a video by one of the street urchins making the rounds on WhatsApp, and the young man was complaining, he had a wrap of Igbo in his hand, and was saying, no, we cannot agree. We will not agree to this. Things cannot continue to be this expensive. Can you imagine? 100 naira Igbo is now 400 naira. No way. How can we survive on this? And I didn't find it funny. I found it alarming that the brazenness with which the man will hold a wrap of Igbo and begin to complain that the price has gone up, like the price of everything in Nigeria. How will they be able to afford 400 naira Igbo wrap? So then it brings me to the question, so to access some of these drugs that we're talking about is relatively cheap as 100 naira on the streets of Nigeria. I'm coming back to you, Dr. Oluwakemi Ademola. You said there's something about the streets. You said on the street, the language is different. I just told you an example of what's going on in the streets. The price has not gone up. What's your solution to taking this combat to the street? You also said if we're going to fight, we must take it as a combat. So I come to you with combat, and I come to you with asking for a solution to this epidemic on the streets. Yes, madam.
Yes, I'm on the street. I go under the bridge. I interact with them. We send them to rehabilitation centers. I do family-based therapy, because at a point it was overwhelming. And I'm telling you the truth, on our university campuses, I was teaching a master's class, and I said we have like 40% prevalence, and the students laughed, like I told you. It's more like 70%. When we think of 20-25%, 1 in every 4. Now, the question I'll put to all of us is this: do you know that most homes have a bar? As far back as 20 years ago, homes started having bars, meaning we introduced these children to the drugs. I went to a primary school to do drug prevention, and you know that those kids concluded that it was their grandparents that introduced them to drugs. I'm talking about the gateway drugs. When we say people can drink, and I was asking myself yesterday, are we ever old enough to be poisoned? So when we allow our 13-year-old to go to bars and drink, I said, no. Don't let a 13-year-old be introduced to drugs. Let him be 18. I tell you, they don't start taking those drugs at 18. They start much early. We've seen it in primary school. Children talking about, did he hit you? Did you get the high? And then family-based therapy. What I found that was very, very good for me was when I decided to train the mothers. Okay, before they would bring the addict, the boy does not even want to be off it, or the girl. 1 in 4 addicts is a female. We're seeing that you go to bars, 50 scritches are there looking at everybody. The cakes are flavored. One day, a friend, a colleague, a medical doctor called me and said, Katie, can you believe what I heard today? A young girl, she had known a Christian. What I mean by Christian is she went to the hospital and she was just not together. And she said, oh, now, that means what's wrong with you now? She was surprised when she said, that means, are you taking cannabis? Do you know what the girl responded? No, me, Muboma, I'm not taking drugs. I'm eating Igbo. She asked, who gave you cannabis to take? She said she was sad, and a boy passing by said, how are you doing? Why are you so downcasted? I said, no, I'm downcasted because my parents, I'm not sure what they home is like. And he said, oh, Konde, what Jawa now? Come and eat beans. So served her these beans, which she ate. After that, she felt the euphoria. And the next thing, it became something she ate anytime she was unhappy. Our children, and it's a class struggle, because the tendency for the middle class or the professional class is to think it's happening to somebody else every year. And I was with another lecturer, professor of medicine, just 2 days back, a friend, and he said, why do we have minimum of 2 medical students breaking down because of drug every year? That's another university. My university, every year we have them. So it is not just on the street now. It's in our homes, it's on the street. But when we started training women to attend to their children and to learn to trace the pain, I always put it to people. 1, taking drugs does not make a bad person. You're medicating a pain. Our problem is, what are these pains that our young children are medicating? Nobody wakes up in the morning thinking, I want to take a drug. You would want to eat food. But if you have a pain, an emotional pain most of the time, which you cannot address, especially the question of identity. Who am I? Is there a future for me? And somebody offers you this drug, just like, oh, your head is aching, take a drug. So your soul is aching, take a drug. And what drug am I offering you? Over time, they up it, and we see it in the media every day. Okay, I just finished a session on air. I'm a media person, and I do that. So you see, people are willing to listen, but do we have the people that understand the program and who is going to walk the talk? Several of my people tell me that when they go to the hospital, they meet the psychiatrist because their parents are middle class. They meet the psychiatrist, they meet the psychologist, the clinical psychologist. And guess what happened next? They get them to fill an evaluation form and lock them out. Why? You need to work with this addict for some time. It's something that does not go just by dispensing psychiatric drugs, advising people, counseling them. You have to follow them through. So the best method I have found that works with family-based therapy, where you would discuss with the mother. Usually mothers have had situations where parents came along, but the mother can follow through and you can trace the pain with the mother. And once we identify the cause of the pain, then you can begin to really move towards recovery. Rehabilitation centers are packed filled with people, and faith-based organizations are doing better. So what I'm saying is this: everybody must have their hands on the deck. It is not bad people, it is not the poor, it is everyone. And I'll draw an attention to hotels, okay? You discover that many hotels are springing up, many centers are springing up black holes. They call them black holes, are on every street now. And I challenge landlords, you know the man manning the black hole. Have you ever addressed this black hole? So it is not just the addict, it's the supply chain. it's billions. The business is in billions. So if we trace the money, we now know drugs are distributed as early as 5 a.m. in Nigeria. You see these young boys with sachets on them, they're distributing drugs. And then parents get their sons, girlfriends that understand that the guy has a drug problem. I'm on the street. I see this every day. They rent apartments for them very far away into new areas, in new areas, and there's a girl there taking care of the addict that the parents do not want to see. When we take these children off their hands to rehabilitation centers, parents abandon them because of the stigmatization. The children are not necessarily bad. They were introduced into the drug issue because of some pains they got from home most of the time. The ones that experiment are not so many because we like to think of maybe peer pressure. No. There was a pain and somebody recommended a panacea. There was an headache and somebody said, oh, take paracetamol. So somebody sees you sad or your parents, the divorce rate is high, dysfunctional families, a lot is going on all the time. People are pretending they have one face at home, another face out there, and the children are confused. Lastly, I want to give the report of a young man who told me his aim in life was to torture his father. Can you believe such? And he was committed to say, he gave me his name. And my intention in life is to disgrace him. Everybody think he's great. Everybody think he's holy. I am determined to disgrace him. So that is the anger. The young people are angry. They think being good, straight and narrow is not working for them, and they're coming up with their solutions. That is why all of us must have our hands to help, to educate, to actively discuss and engage our youth about the drug issue. Thank you.
Thank you very much, madam. Quite a lot to pack into that response. I hear you loudly saying that it's not by dispensing and letting them go. It's about identifying the source of their pain and applying and going about it through the family-based therapies. I hear you loudly. 1 in every 4 students in school is doing drugs. I hear you even more loudly when you said the primary school drug prevention programs that you have. You discovered that some of the children were introduced to drugs by their grandparents, which is really tragic. You said a lot, madam. I hear you talk about the pains the children are numbing with the drugs, the identity question, the emotional question or the problem, what a lot of them call breakfast in Nigeria today. I hear you talk about the supply chain as well, starting from as early as 5 a.m., being called black holes, and the stigma involved in a child who has degenerated into addiction, how they're hustled away. And I hear you talk about the gateway drugs as well. All of this, I am coming back to you. I hear you loudly when you said all of us must join hands together. I mean, there is the anger question as well. So 3 things you talked about: the identity question, the emotional question, and well, anger is also emotion. So I'll leave it at that. The emotional problem could be anger. It could be from frustration about the divorce rate, which really is quite high now. Thank you so very much. It's good to have an expert in the house, an addiction expert, a family-based therapist. And I'm coming back to you, Dr. Ehigiato Adayonfo. I'm going to read your quote with which we promoted this conversation. You said, and I quote, "Through collaborative efforts spanning diverse sectors, we can make notable strides in securing our community against the dangers posed by the chronic brain disease called drug abuse and drug dependence." I never saw it as a disease. Nobody ever related to it as a disease until you started speaking. I wrote it down, but I'd like you to return to why have you classified this as a disease? Never heard that before.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yes, it's actually not me classifying it as a disease. Indeed, drug abuse is a disease. And experts all over the world have, studied the matter over the years. We are at a point now where we have the needed radiological gadgets to actually look at the brain. And today we are aware that the brain before a person started using drug is not the same thing as the brain the person gets when the person begin to use drugs. You get the point. And so,
So
what
the
is a
brain
disease? A disease
metamorphosing.
is the brain of a person who has a substance use disease is different from the brain of people who do not have a substance use disease. You see, and if you were to do a brain scan before a person started using drugs, when they start using drugs, their brain scan become different. You see? Now, what is a disease? A disease is something that can change the function and the structure of a body part. And that's exactly what the drugs are doing. The drugs, they change the function of the brain, in the beginning. That is the high we talk about. That is the sense of pleasure, the sense of motivation, the sense of energy. That's because it's coming from the brain. Because the drugs are making, some neurotransmitters, some chemicals very much available. And this chemical make people happy, make them to have energy, make them to be motivated. But over time, the drugs will also affect the structure of the brain. So anything that can change the structure and function of a body part automatically is a disease. And so that is why substance abuse is now recognized worldwide as a chronic brain disease. Just the way you can have people who have diabetes or hypertension, the same thing people develop substance disease. In the beginning, it may be an experiment. It may be maybe some form of indiscipline. But when people get into the realm of substance abuse, otherwise called substance addiction or dependence, it is no more a matter of indiscipline. Even when the people are prepared to stop, they can no more stop because the drug has changed this function and the structure of their brain. And so they have a disease.
Amazing. The brain practically gets transformed
Exactly.
when someone is into substance abuse.
Yeah.
Amazing. Okay, so what should we start doing? This is about solution. We've talked about the end.
Yes,
What are
like I said in my
closing?
quote, all hands have to be on deck. We need to look at prevention now, and the prevention is such that everybody needs to be involved. And like has been stated here, it starts with the family. Then the schools have a role to play. Religious institutions have a role to play. Hospitals have roles to play. Then the legal system, the mass media, and indeed the government, even individuals, peer group. Everybody's a stakeholder in the prevention of substance abuse. Individuals need to get education on the ills of substances. Individuals need to adopt a healthy lifestyle. We need to select our friends. We need to seek support from family and good friends. You heard one of the panelists say, oh, somebody was sad, and a friend said, oh, eat this. That is how it often starts. So people need to be encouraged to seek professional care when they have emotional pain. And this is, the relevance of mental health literacy. Our mental health literacy is poor. So many people, they only have a knowledge of physical illness. So when people have a psychological illness, they are oftentimes not aware. So there is need for a lot of, mental health and substance abuse education, at every opportunity, whether in school, whether in the churches, even in the hospital. They need to find ways to incorporate substance abuse education into, healthcare delivery services in the hospitals. For example, in the antenatal care. For example, where children go to take treatment. While they are waiting to see doctors, there should be health talk on substance abuse and mental health issues. Then at the level of the family must encourage open communication. It should be such that children are close to their parents, parents are close to their children, and children are close to themselves. So that if something is going on with a member of the family, he or she should find it very easy to communicate. And then we must be involved in each other's lives. That is the implication. We must look at each other's faces. And if we observe that, oh, this person doesn't appear to be happy, a family member should show that concern and be ready to take the necessary action. Then family must have rules and regulations. Children must grow up to understand that there's something called a family culture. There are expectations, there are boundaries. And of course, parents must now, more than ever before, find ways to monitor their children. At every point in time, we should know what our children are doing. Those in school, we should pay them visits from time to time. Those at home, when they come back from school, we should try to find out what may have, happened in school and all that. Then at the level of the school, there is need for school to organize, periodic education program. Schools must create a supportive environment. And schools must find ways, I'm talking of secondary schools now, they must find ways to, invite parents sometime to school and give parents education on how to look after their children. Because school children are from different backgrounds. There are parents who are not aware of some of the issues we are discussing now because of their own, maybe level of education and so on, socioeconomic standing. And so it's part of the duties of a school to get parents on board and give them education on issues of drug abuse. Then, of course, this implies schools must have counseling units for substance use. School must be able to do basic, screening, random screening of their students, so that if a person is using drug, it can be picked up early and the right things are done. And of course, schools must have a policy on drug abuse. I think universities have now, because there was a federal government directive to that effect. But the issue is not just university, but primary and secondary school. Like I've stated here, studies are showing that between 20 and 40% of people in school, people less than 19 years old, are have a substance use disorder, which means that the emphasis really should be at primary school and then secondary school. And so there must be this, mental substance use policy, even in schools. Then children must also engage in, there must be deliberate effort to engage students in extracurricular activities. Because again, if people engage in exercises, if their neurotransmitters will work well, and so they are not likely to have a need to introduce factors that can stimulate neurotransmitters from outside. And of course, religious institutions, they have a role to play. They need to provide moral guidance. They need to promote positive values and healthy lifestyle. And they also need to be able to encourage education. From time to time, they can invite experts to come and talk about substance abuse, even in churches. And of course, churches can also build capacity so that they are able to also do random screening of young ones who are in the religious institutions. And then of course hospitals we always have a big role to play, and so on and so forth. So everybody should be involved.
Everybody should be involved. I kept writing, and I think I wrote more than 10 solutions from you. So I thought, look, stop him. Stop
Thank
him.
you.
You have really spoken like the addiction experts that you are. Thank you very much. I have written so much: school policy, church policy,
Yes.
rules and regulation in the family. There has to be a family culture. So 3 ways you've looked at it: from the school, the educational institution, from the families, and the church. And to modify that for you, I believe you mean worship centers generally.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you've spoken quite extensively about how we can begin to arrest this epidemic. I like that you talked about family bonding, and then you said that there's a lot of distance in families. People are not bonding properly, so they're turning to other places and other people for the solution to their challenges. Thank you very much, Doctor, for your beautiful contribution at this juncture. Thank you. So in Nigeria, there are names given to a lot of these drugs. I know that the Englishman has his own definition, which I'm just going to read out. Names of commonly abused drugs in Nigeria: there is cannabis, which is popularly known as Igbo. There is cocaine. There is amphetamine. There is heroin. Diazepam, you will know because you're the expert
Diazepam.
here. Codeine, that people can even take from the abuse of cough syrups. Tramadol. Tramadol made so much impact in Nigeria, but those are the technical names, the register that we know. On the streets, I know that Dr. Aremu can give us more names that she's come up with on the street, but what we know is that today in Nigeria, there are dispatch riders distributing these drugs. Let me come to Dr. Oluwakemi Ademola Aremu. I'm coming back to you, Dr. Dokun Adedeji, in a jiffy, but let me return to the woman on the streets. Tell us about the names you have encountered, so we know when these children are coding, and we can show that we hear you. I know what you're talking about, because also we also have to be literate. There is something called civil literacy. We also have to be literate to know what's going on. So, madam, are you there?
I am.
Doctor.
But then, you see, they evolve these names every day. You know, for example, the Colorado, I would ask them, Colorado, what do you think Colorado is? Okay, now, one name, what this generation has done that adults should really watch out for. They've created their own language. Yes. So that language you have no inkling about. Once you think you're getting it this way, they go the other way. For example, baking with drugs. Okay, baking with drugs. Given that, you know, we have the official names, then we have the street names. Do you know the worst thing now? There was something from Sierra Leone about people smoking bones, dead men's bones. Okay, and then I thought.
Hello. Can we all still hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you. I think
Okay,
Dr. Ademola Aremu is the one with connectivity issue.
Okay, that means her network is frozen. So let me return to Dr. Dokun Adedeji. Please jump right in. Let's talk about this need for us to even be literate as adults, as parents, as caregivers.
Right. You know, I think somebody said something about gateway drugs that we always neglect. Alcohol is the most dangerous drug in the world because of the effect that it has on people. But because it is socially acceptable, we don't worry too much about it until someone becomes intoxicated to the point of falling or misbehaving. If you go and check some of these things that are sold as bitters, some of these sachets, you'll be shocked at the level of alcohol content in them. That is the level of alcohol. Let me just give you the street names of some of these things. You know, you mentioned marijuana. They call it weed. they call it igbo, they call it ganja, they call it cannabis. They also call it in the local language, in the street language, they can call it efo, they can call it eja. And you know, when the young man says mofelo reja, you think he wants to go and buy fish. It is not true. Or mofelo refo, or something like that. And then you know, the marijuana, when you talk to them, they say, I take weed. I say, tell me, what do you mean by weed? They say, oh, weed now. For instance, some of these things classified as weed are not straightforward weed, like skunk. They call it SK on the street. Skunk is not straightforward weed. It is weed plus dry leaves of pawpaw and cocaine. And so they call it weed. And then when you come to something like marijuana, yes, marijuana is weed. Then they come to something like Colorado, which they now call colos on the street. And colos, Arizona, and Canadian loud are not straightforward weed. They are synthetic marijuanas. And what we have found out that in this component, there's just about 10 to 11% of marijuana in it. The rest is chemicals and herbs. That is why it affects them in the way that it does. And then when you then look at something they call SK, SK is called, I've told about it, that's skunk. And then you get something like scoochies. Scoochies is a liquid form of all these drugs. And how do they prepare it? They get something like blackcurrant or maybe zobo, because they have about the same coloration, and then they put in a big bowl. They soak marijuana in it. They put tramadol in it, and then they put codeine as well. And they serve these things cold at parties, and that is what we call scoochies. And then when you then come to something like they call some banku, and just when you get those, they begin to wonder banku is just a variety of cocaine, or there something like that, or methylcrystal. When you see methylcrystal on the street, they call it ice because it looks like ice. This is what the Igbos call nkuni, and this methylcrystal. And you know, the thing is, they are now produced in Nigeria. You don't need a big laboratory to do that. There was a gentleman that was producing it in VGC. He had his wife in the same house. He had his little child in his house, and he was preparing it. And you said something about tramadol. You know, tramadol is a drug of prescription that we prescribe in hospital. The dosage prescribed in hospital is about 50 milligrams. But the tramadol on the street starts from 200 milligrams, 250 milligrams, 500 milligrams, 1,000 milligrams. And then when you hear them, they call it Tramar or TM. And also when you come to something like Refnol is a drug of prescription as well. It is what is called a date rape drug. And that's why they call it they call it roofie. When you want to identify someone who takes Refnol, tell them to open their mouth. It's bluish because that's the color of the drug. And so for them to cover it up so that you don't know, they take something like Baba Blue, one sweet that is called Baba Blue, so it colors the mouth as well, so you are not sure what they take. Look, you said something, you know, some of them soak away. Petrol, glue, gum, methylated spirit, even hand sanitizer, because it has alcohol. You know, so the things are just very fun. There's something in the north called Zakami seed. It's also extremely psychotic. It has a lot of substance in it that causes a psychotic presentation. Also in the southwest, they call something gegemu. Gegemu is a plant that grows normally, but somehow they found that if you pluck the leaves and then you boil it, you can take it, it knocks you out. It's extremely potent. They also found that the fruits of this gegemu has rough edge like this. They dry it, they grind it, use it as snuff, or put it in drinks. So the thing is, we just must be observant every day. One boy told me in a hospital where he went for rehabilitation, in a teaching hospital where he went for rehabilitation, I said, how do you get drugs? They said they prepare their own. They pluck dongoyaro leaves and then soak it in methylated spirit. And then, bravo, there he was. So you can imagine, some of them will go to walls where they grow molds and then scrape the spirogyra, dry it up, put it and wrap it up, and then put fire to it and it becomes something else. So it's so important that we get to know, we see this every day. And then so parents must begin to be aware. All of us must begin to be aware. And that was why I said something about the media. The media has a major role to play. You know, many times, many of them interview you for the sensational reason. oh, 10,000 cartons was seized. That's the only thing they know about this thing. Today, I don't know whether I remember a lady called Lola Fanika Williams. She became Lola Macaulay. She did a documentary called I forgot it suddenly. I just forgot it now. And then that was a huge thing at that time. That helped a lot of people to have an understanding of drugs and what it does. We need to have something so consistent. It shouldn't be something we do today and then we walk away. It must be so consistent that we take it all around and then I ask people when you say do a drug test or let's do screening. What is the purpose of the screening? Is it to punish? If we don't begin to change our attitude away from punitive and then to something into rehabilitative and then help it, nobody will submit itself for test. You know, they said the public servant will come and do test, and they refuse. The National Assembly, no, it should not be made compulsory. Why are you making it compulsory for students? And then yet you cannot do it for your National Assembly people who are aspiring to go to. Professor Lambo warned us many years ago before he died. He said anybody aspiring for public office has to be screened. But we did not listen. But look at what we are saying today. And you want these young people not to take drugs when some of their parents sell it. It's difficult. It's difficult.
Yes. Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Dr. Dokwadede. Who better to tell us about the lingo, the local lingo for a lot of these drugs? Look, I could hear a lot of the names I heard on the streets: Colos, Arizona, Canadian, Skunks, Coochie, quite a number of them. You left out Opayi and all the gamut of the local concussions on the streets.
Yes.
Different from gum, even feces that they dry,
right,
and they begin to see. So we're dealing with an epidemic, great proportion here, truly. I know that a lot of these things, I said earlier that some of them are delivered through dispatch riders. And we see that a lot of them also access this through parties. So they have these wild parties where this substance, these drugs are delivered to them, and it's all over. They go wild. And can we begin to even how do we regulate parties? Is it even right to regulate parties? You're a human rights activist as well. Dr. Doku, I'm speaking with you. Dr. Doku,
oh, okay. Okay. You see, the thing is, let me tell you something, Funke. If you do not come to a full understanding of how these things work, you can't begin to regulate. I remember when we were talking about codeine many years ago, nobody listened until BBC came and did a documentary. Everyone began to run around.
Codeine documentary,
and then they said
yeah.
And then they banned codeine. And I said it was silly to ban it. Because what you are just doing is to drive it underground. I tell you today, people still buy codeine. Before the ban, it used to be about less than 1,000 naira. But today you can get, where they know you can get a bottle of codeine for between 5,000 and 10,000 naira. See, so the thing is not to ban. The thing is to have an understanding, begin to let people understand. This is like cigarettes. They write it on the pack. Smoking kills or something like that. And then let people be aware. Let people make informed choices. If people have a deep understanding of what can be, and then we deal with the fundamental. Look, let me tell you, see, nobody wakes up and says, I want to be an addict. I've never seen it. The thing that usually happens is this: people gravitate towards it one way or the other, right under the noses of parents. People go into drugs. Why? Some parents don't even know anything. They never stay with their children. They think it's a sign of affluence to get so many domestic staff. The driver takes them to school. You don't know the driver. You don't know the gardener. You don't know the house cook. You don't know whoever works for you. And they are the ones who bring the drugs to these children. And just as I said about the dispatch rider, Jeremiah, they've caught about at least 30 of them who were carrying drugs. Some of them were carrying innocently, didn't know what they were carrying. For some, it was business. And I say to parents, if you see anybody living close to you, that the dispatch rider is always coming there pretending to bring food, check it. It is not food anymore. Because these things can be used to cook, they can be used to garnish noodles, they can be used They can use to cook beans, jollof rice, and they even put it in cookies. Just as I said about party, you can't regulate parties. But when you regulate the people in terms of giving them knowledge, they then make up that. I've said it to people when I go to talk to them. Don't go to the party of a friend of a friend. Somebody you don't know, don't go to their parties. And when you go to parties, don't eat at the parties. Don't drink at the parties because nothing is innocent anymore. If we begin, don't tell people like that. I tell the girls, when you go to parties, don't let anybody open your drink for you. If you open your drink, you have to go to the bathroom, carry your drink with you. If you don't carry it with you, then don't take it when you return. There's nothing that is innocent anymore. So if the more we let people understand, the better it is for all of us.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Dokun Adedeji. You've spoken extensively about what to do and what not to do. Certainly banning anything is never a solution. That's your stand in this wise. If you're just joining the conversation, you've been listening to Dr. Dokun Adedeji, former DG, Christ Against Drug Abuse Ministry, and member of the Special Purpose Committee of the NDLEA. I'm coming back to the human rights activist and executive director, Choice Solution Welfare Initiative International. That's Dr. Oluwakemi Ademola Aremu. We lost you while you were trying to give us the name of the drugs on the street, but Dr. Adedeji has given us more than enough names. We now know these code names for the drugs. So let me return to your quote with which we advertised this conversation. Mass hypnosis, I'm quoting you now. Mass hypnosis, usually through the mass media. The glorification of hard drugs in adverts, news channels, in pop culture is louder than dissenting voices. It is time to speak up against drug abuse. So I'd like you to speak to this mass hypnosis, the glorification in adverts. You have chosen to talk about the mass media part of it. And after you speak, I then go to the comment section, and I'm going to be reading some of them out to you, our distinguished guests. So, madam, over to you. Mass media, mass hypnosis, glorification in adverts.
I was out. So now the thing is, there was 26th of December, not before, there was a billboard advertising Dirty December. That was 2 years back. And when I saw the lady on the billboard in Gata, I went to a coalition. You know, we have NGO coalitions, more than 60 coalitions were members of that. I told them, you sit here having this meeting. There's a billboard at a junction advertising it's kind of sacrilege of your December. What will happen at that place? They listed them. The kids will be free, so the idea of freedom with drugs is what they're pursuing. But what are they running away from? So within 2 days, we brought down that billboard. There's somebody now told me, Katie, the billboard you got away from this end has gone to another junction. I said, well, thank God it's close to a church, then, very large church. If the pastors watch that billboard, why should I speak? Because what we have noticed is that people tend to announce problems to us. I get calls every day. Katie, this is happening. I tell them, you have seen it, deal with it. If you don't know how to deal with it, invite me to your organization. I'm willing to speak about it. Nigerians must understand, in a democracy, every citizen should be active. Activism is not for just some people. And then we have told them, we work with NGL, we explain to people, we are not punishing the addict. We are punishing the people selling. People are benefiting from this business in billions. And I put it to you, it is not strange. We always knew, I knew as a child that they would say, military men were receiving certain injections, steroids. Now, when you see the guards now, you see them buffed up. What is causing the buff? When you see a carpenter or a mason, you see the real muscle. This one that is looking very funny, is it a normal drug or steroidal stimulated? Then think of our children. Every time they say, I want to go. I just want to leave this nation. So when they are poor and they think there's no help coming from anywhere else, what do you think they'll resort to? The addict is medicating a pain. This pain is coming from individuals, yes. It is coming from families. In fact, families foremost. It is coming from the nation. Now, you do know that when we talk about the gateway drugs, we glorify alcohol. Alcohol is a drug. And then we talk about the cigarette. Now, people take they go to the bars now and they flavor drinks for them. It's actually hookah, but they call them scooches. So these girls sit down in the presence of adults, puffing away, and they think it introduces them to an upper class. What about the role models of our society? The addicts told me, I meet them, yes. So they told me in their safe, I have a place where I call Safe Together. In the Safe Together space, I allow them to do the speaking. And then they tell me, look, drug, it's sweet. Do you know that? When you tell them it's dangerous, they tell you it is sweet. So I want them, don't tell them it is, they know it is sweet to them. So it's for you to show them the pictures of their brains, the neurological post, and explain to them. I love using a very wonderful musician, and I'm going to say it because it's a classical case, Majek Fashek. Handsome, talented, but because he saw some people in the industry thinking for you to be, I'm an addict, I'm an activist. So many activists are actually druggies, Yes, they take drugs, they glorify it. It's almost like if you're in the media too, if you're in the entertainment industry, you must do some drugs. So let us deal with the problem. You want to be bold. So let us teach them skills that will help them develop their boldness. Let us teach them the meaning of true confidence. Let us help them know what it is. So there must be some level of formal training and informal education. Parents must be educated, and the children must also know if you are shy, it is not hiding from the shyness of medicating. It is going to embrace the theories that will help you become bold. How do we speak publicly? Then if you want to be wise, we keep showing people, our children, the children told me, they said, look, 10 years, they told me, I grew up on the music. Every time they showed the star, he's with 6 girls, he's not dressed, he's puffing away. The whole place is even smoked. Unfortunately, even when you go to religious spaces, there's a lot of smoke going on. And I keep telling people, vaporizers, when we swing those things around and we are altering the sound of the mind of people, what are we doing? Then we have linked genius to drug. Now, a lady once approached me and said, oh, she's blind really, and she's afraid, and she knows I love to invest in anything she's doing. She said, I'm going to sell you CBD. I said, cannabinoids. Do you know what it means? I said, no, it's without the THC. So we must influence the conversation going on. Drug will not help you become a genius. Drug is going to impair you. You tell them about the first member of the alcohol group, it blinds you. So information is what we need to learning, and learning we need to change in behavior. So we need to flood the space. Billboards should say no to drugs, and they show pictures. So there was this Majek Fashek, handsome, wonderful musician. Anytime he sang, even Evans attested to it, there was rain. Before you knew what was happening, it was gone. This is real. And people cannot commit crime in their right minds. So who is inflicting the pain? I put it to you. Fathers are protectors and fathers are providers. Effeminization of men is causing an identity crisis for the families. You cannot just abandon your family and run away. So most of the time I have issues, when we come for this family-based therapy, the children will always have a father issue. If the child is blaming the mother, then she gets the beat. Or the child thinks, mommy is the reason daddy left me. So a lot is going on, and it will take all of us, like I've said, but we must be informed. So we should make it. One suggestion I would like to make is that the billboards should please stop showcasing drinks. And the religious setting too. There was a time when you held a wine glass, you were drinking wine. Now they call it non-alcoholic wine. I tell them, if it is a wine, it has some alcohol. There's nothing like non-alcoholic wine. We're confusing the young people. And a boy once told me, don't mind my parents, when they were young, I saw them with green bottles. Why don't they want me to spend my own youth? So they call drug intake enjoyment.
Right.
So I am us. Yes, we are the ones, and then we leave them alone. So somehow, I don't know how we're going to do it. Mothers have to find a way of getting back to their primary duties, nurture and care. And our fathers have to become more responsible. It is not cultural to abuse a woman. And then think of a lot of assaults that is going on is driven by drugs. A lot of crime that we're seeing is driven by drugs. So these are things we must emphasize. Say no to drugs, because drug will limit your lifespan, will destroy your ability. Drug will destroy your perception. And drug is destroying the central nervous system, that beautiful brain that we have to reason critically to make important decisions in life that will save you and save generations unborn. You don't want to be on drugs, so the message must be loud and clear. We must buy spaces in the media and announce no to drugs, no to drugs. And we should be willing to identify with the addicts in the family. If there is a prevalence of 25%, I bet you, as we're speaking now, there's a family member you call the black sheep that you should draw close to and draw closer to you today. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Explosive, from Dirty December to buying space in the media to say no to drugs. Thank you so very much, Dr. Oluwakemi Ademola Aremu. I will come back to some of the, to highlight some of the things you've talked about, but quickly, let me read from some of our people who've been leaving comments. I'll start with Wale Croft, who said, I think we need to remove the secrecy, the pretense and stigma. It cannot be a matter of us against them in our society any longer. It's about all of us confronting the issues collectively. We need to be understanding. We need to be caring and patient with everyone affected. No one can really take a moral high ground on this. And Kehinde Oderinge says, kudos to the panelists for providing responses that are informative, apt, and enlightening. Indeed, preventing substance abuse among youth requires a comprehensive approach that addresses various aspects such as education, awareness, support, intervention strategies as well. And by incorporating all of these elements into prevention programs and initiatives, we can effectively combat substance abuse and promote healthier choices among young individuals. And Dr. Hasia says parents must really be open to psycho education. Christopher Akin says some parents are aware their wards are hooked on drugs and are struggling alone secretly and unsuccessfully because of the shame and stigma attached. How can we educate the public on this? So I'm going to return to the problem that stigma is. And finally, Regina Crisobodo said, I love the fact that the addicts shouldn't be the ones punished, rather the sellers. These guys hardly have their families exposed to it. Those are the comments we have. I'm going to return to Dr. Oluwakemi's points. She said, drugs don't help you become geniuses, it impairs. She says the feminization of men, children have father issues as well, and mothers have to return to being nurturers that they are. She also talked about our activists and entertainers taking drugs. I like, as a speech coach and a public speaker, I like what you've said about public speaking and drugs, people doing drugs to enhance their boldness when they stand before people. I've actually watched a movie where the lead actress had to take to drugs so that she could act very well in the movie, within the movie. And then she later became an addict at the end of the day. It was a movie to say no to drugs. So there you have it. We've talked extensively about the solutions we need to adopt in order to beat or win the war against drug abuse. I see that today is telling me to hurry up. We're almost behind time, so he's making me stutter there. Let me return to our experts before we wrap it up. But then, experts, what is it about shame and stigma of drug addicts? How can we surmount that in order to win from that angle? I'll start with you, Dr. Aremu, and then I'll take all the other panelists. Then we'll begin to round up. Hello, I can't hear you. Would that be me?
Okay. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, thanks. Yes, shaming and stigmatization. Stigmatization is saying because you were bad today, you're bad forever. No, or stigmatizing people affected by drugs. Some would not even marry to that. But like I said, there was a day I was on air and people called in and the boy said, "It's my parents. They're talking about me." I said, "Are we going to clap for you?" We can't clap for you because you have an antisocial behavior. So what are we going to do? Let's have an open space where we can discuss it. Where the child begins to know, I'm harming me. It's not mommy I'm harming. I am harming me. And then I asked one addict, I said, okay, does your girlfriend know you're on drugs? He said, no. I said, you see, you're not even proud of what you're doing. Anything you have to hide is the problem. When we talk about non-stigmatization, because I lost a boy earlier, late last year, it was a 24-year-old boy. I'd asked the parents to see me some 5 years before that time. They refused because he's the son of a very big, prominent Jew. And then just then he took ice. This one is ice, and it was frozen. That drug they call it ice, and it was frozen. He died at 24. He should have graduated that November, but he died. Now the father kicked him. I was weeping. Do you know why I was weeping? The pain of a father. So we told you, you wouldn't hear. The drug addict cannot hear. His brain has been changed. All he can think about is the high. So he needs care. So when we say don't stigmatize in such a way that the parents can bring forward their loved ones for the care that they need. There was this time when I go to rehabilitation centers and I see some down and out, some older people. Right now, I have 200 level students, 300 level students occupying every bed in more than 3 rehabilitation centers. Unfortunately, their parents still want them to be in school. Another problem is your child cannot cope with sciences. Why is he in a science class? You knew you couldn't cope as a young person and you don't have the aptitude to help the child. Then the creative industry, let them know if you don't have the gift, you cannot steal it. So work within your capacity. So stop shaming professions because I see a lot of that frustration. And parents, please, they're not in your generation. Many parents say, imagine, I asked them, please, what was it that this child wanted to do? He said, he was thinking of singing. I said, he's not going to use your voice. Please, let's take him to the studio. Okay? So when he gets to the studio, he discovers that the voice has been destroyed. Then he starts working, because now this is evidence-based. Another thing, one parent told me, hey, look at the boy. We didn't have a child till we were 40 years old and we gave birth to this boy. So God sent you the one you wanted. And then now the boy, he wants to make the hair white. I say, is it your head? Let him dye it. By the time he goes into the street, he's trying to tell me, that means what is this one? You see, sometimes we wear spirit. So let them be generation. Let's accept them. So acceptance is, you are my child, you have a problem, I'll walk with you. I will not join everybody to mock you. You need help. How can I be of help? That is what we're asking for. Understanding. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. If I left you, you will go on, and you have an incredible CV here. You started the Street Child Care and Welfare Initiative to provide socioeconomic advantage to vulnerable children who are abandoned, neglected, impoverished by poverty and social inequalities. I see here that you're the mastermind of the war against rape, the war movement. You championed the rights of vulnerable women. You trained in toxicology. Also communications experts, quite obvious, particularly broadcasting, really, making you a scholar activist to the core. Thank you very much. You've reached over 10,000 street children through a number of mobile programs and outreaches. Thank you very much for all that you do. I'm going to move on now. You've added so much color to the conversation today. I'm going to move on to the addiction expert here, Dr. Higiato. What do you think we can do about shame as a wrap up this conversation? Dr. Higiato, are you there?
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, well, there is nothing to be ashamed about. So what we need to do about shame and stigma is to continue to provide education, substance use disorder education at all levels, starting from the lowest level, which is the family, and thereafter the primary and secondary school. Now, we need to let people appreciate that those who have a substance use disorder, uh, they don't have it because it is their fault. Now, we need to establish that and appreciate that when 10 people go to smoke cocaine, only about 3 will develop, cocaine use disorder. Many people will tell you they have used cocaine, they didn't like it. Someone has said that, oh, he only uses cocaine anytime he travels to America, which means he didn't develop the brain disease called cocaine use disorder. So invariably, there is something about the people who develop the brain disorder. And that thing is not their fault. The same way many people can drink a bottle of Coke every day and not develop diabetes, whereas others can do it and within a short while, they have diabetes. The same story it is with drug abuse. And so drug abuse is a disease. If we keep talking about this, we will be addressing directly the shame associated with coming down with drug abuse or having a family member who has got drug abuse. And then if government does the needful by ensuring that treatment is made available, culturally appropriate treatment, accessible treatment is readily available, affordable, then people will get to see that oh, this person had a substance, a drug abuse problem, went into treatment, and came out successfully. Just now, many people think drug abuse cannot be treated. And so that is part of the shame. So if we begin to, provide education about what drug abuse is, let people know that it is not a matter of indiscipline, it's not a matter of lack of willpower, it's not a matter of some other personal issues. Then people will come to terms with the fact that it is a disease. Now, people, now it is good to always start very early in one's life, because education will only work for people who have not developed the disorder. Once a person has developed a substance use disorder, no matter how much education you give the person, it's not going to work again. A person who has developed a substance use disorder needs treatment. It is after they are treated, they will be able to benefit from whatever education you are going to provide.
Right.
The brain is diseased, and what is needed is treatment. If all these are done, then we would have be able to remove the shame associated with having a substance use disorder.
Thank you very much. You've talked about government coming into this to make treatment affordable and accessible. Those two are quite important in the treatments of those with substance abuse. Thank you very much, Dr. Higiato Adayon, for addiction experts, associate professor at the Department of Mental Health, University of Benin Teaching Hospital as well. He's also the founder of an NGO named Fatima the Addiction. Dr. Adayofor graduated from UNIBEN as a doctor. He then followed up with a postgraduate diploma in criminology and security studies. He trained at the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime and Federal Ministry of Health in drug dependence treatment. His area of academic focus is substance use and addiction psychiatry. He's also widely traveled and spent years of publications related to substance abuse and addiction. I must thank you very much for your fantastic inputs to the conversation. Thank you so very much. I come to you now, Dr. Dokun Adedeji. What do we do about shame and stigmatization as we wrap up? Dr.
Thank you.
Adedeji.
Incidentally, thank you very much. Okay. Incidentally, I delivered the keynote address last year during the World Drugs Day, and this was the area of my focus. You know, stigma and discrimination are products of ignorance. If people don't know about something, they stigmatize it, and we're a naturally judgmental society. The slightest thing we want to say, we always like to point fingers at people without affording them the opportunities of a defense. And you know, the thing that we must know, and I think we've alluded to it, the fact that somebody has taken drugs before does not make the person a failure in life. I've seen a lot who came through the program that I was involved in, who were into drugs, who today are doctors, are pilots, that all in our profession. And we also must know. And that's why now NDLA is turning its eye to the public health components of substance abuse. And why do I say so? As Dr. Gigato said, if somebody has diabetes, if he has hypertension, if he takes his drug, he gets better. If he doesn't take it, he relapses. It's the same thing with substance abuse. So if the person, for instance, is rehabilitated, is treated, and he goes back to the same circumstances that predisposed them to the situation, of course they will relapse. And so that's one thing we must understand. And what these people just need is a bit of love and understanding. And also we must begin to know that anyone can use drugs. As somebody said, if you get to your friend, if he feeds you noodles or he gives you beans that you were not there when you cook, or they give you a drink that's been laced, that can be the road to addiction. So we must know. One way I think finally I would like to say is the person who uses drugs is our child, is our son, is our husband, is our wife, is our whatever. Are you going to throw your daughter away because he uses drugs? If we then begin to stretch the same devotion and a desire to help to everyone who uses drugs, because if we don't, very soon they will override us and then we'll be in trouble. It's so important that we have this basic understanding about it and then stretch forth our hands to help them. They're human beings. They're like us. Finally, let me mention the case of Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden wrote a book called The Beautiful Thing. He wrote in that book, said the thing that kept him and changed him from being an addict was the love of his parents. He said his father was never tired, he never pushed him out, he was always telling him, look, Hunter, what would you? In 2019, he gave up drugs. And so the success stories are there.
Okay, I think your
And
network is beginning to freeze. But you have spoken.
Oh, okay.
Dr. Adedeji.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Okay, I think your network is freezing now. Just about the signal for me to say thank you to you. You've spoken quite well. And I like the fact that you said shame and stigmatization in drug abuse or substance abuse addicts is your area of specialization. Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, go on. I'm done. I mean, since you said my network is freezing, just froze as well.
Yes, I think Funke seems to be having connectivity issues as well. Right now, our screen is frozen, but she was just beginning to wrap up. Actually, I think we just lost Funke's connection. She'll come back. But in order to keep things going, I think she was just wrapping up. Thank you very much, all of our distinguished
Hello,
panelists.
can you hear me now?
Yes. Yes, we can hear you, Funke. Take it away.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, fantastic. Yes, I was just commending Dr. Adedeji, who said stigma and discrimination is a product of ignorance, and that's his area of specialization in terms of substance abuse and dealing with those who need treatment. I must thank Dr. Dokun Adedeji, former Director General of Christ Against Drug Abuse Ministry, serves now as a member of the Special Purpose Committee of the Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency and DLEA. Dr. Adedokun is a medical graduate of the University of Ile-Ife. He was the medical advisor of Cadbury Nigeria PLC, later the head of human resources at Cadbury PLC, before he voluntarily retired in 2010. He's won the prestigious Chairman's Award for employee involvement in the community while in Cadbury because of his work with Christ Against Drug Abuse Ministries. Appeared in numerous events and broadcasts on substance abuse. Is one of the most informed voices about the scourge, the spread, the treatment and reversal in Nigeria. The General Buba Marwa, the NDLEA chairman in 2023, invited him over to deliver the keynote address at the Presidential Villa Abuja to mark the World Drug Day. And he addressed the need to remove stigma and discrimination from substance abuse. On this note, I see you, Regina, what you wrote about the media plugging into this and creating programs to further help in fighting drug abuse. Thank you for your contribution. I must thank our distinguished panelists for their time and great contributions to the conversation today on People's Parliament as we looked at drug menace, impact and solutions to substance abuse. Dr. Higiato Adayofo, Dr. Oluwakemi Ademola Remu, and Dr. Dokun Adedeji. Thank you very much. And thank you too for writing out those comments and joining us on this conversation.
Fellow Nigerians, the purpose of our movement is to turn grieving Nigerians into active citizens who will, through their own efforts, bring about the kinds of change that turn Nigeria into a modern and prosperous society under a strong foundation based on the rule of law. The Initiative for Good and Informed Citizenship, the parent organization for Rescue Nigeria, will make it obvious to all citizens that Nigeria has lost control and that Nigeria cannot succeed if we keep going this way. Since doing the same thing all the time and expecting a different result is called madness. We strongly believe that the situation will not change through fruitless talking by citizens or any incoming national leadership. The change we want is only possible through an active, responsible, and participatory citizenship. The people must be challenged to hold themselves accountable as change definers rather than victims. It is you and us who will make Nigeria what we want it to be. This movement that we're introducing to you today is a citizen movement. Politicians are not welcome. It belongs to you and us, we the people who are tired of living in a badly run country. The ultimate goal of the movement is to create a massive body of politically sophisticated citizens who place a demand on elected leaders and are rewarded with good governance. Our members will not accept bribes, will not be tricked or lied to, and will demand good leadership. The central value of the movement is simple. Good citizenship from ordinary people is the driver for good leadership. The movement will therefore require members to pledge to some rules of behavior. These rules are that the citizen is the first and most important unit of change in Nigeria. In everything, the citizen must act morally and with conscience. If the citizen is successful and Nigeria is not, the individual's greatness is vastly diminished. In whatever a citizen of Nigeria does, it will be for the best public good because directly or indirectly, his or her well-being depends on it. Members will strive to do good at all times while rejecting bad, self-centered, incompetent, and corrupt leadership. Members will eschew tribalism and ethnic rivalry and commit to breaking their transmission to the younger generation. Our organization will build a community of change lovers through the social media, electronic communication, message-driven content, data science, the mass media, the legal systems, and community organizing such as this event. To build capability and capacity, it has become important to build a network of honest, well-meaning, and accessible people like you who can partner with us to increase the scale and scope of our activities to reach a larger audience. Our next steps as a movement include breaking the resistance from frustrated citizens who have concluded that change is not possible and activating their membership. welcoming those who have benefited unethically from the system but now accept that their success has been tainted, who are now prepared for change by joining our movement for a better Nigeria. Improving the sophistication of our messages, data science capabilities, and the scale of our campaigns. Achieve our objective to raise 10 million followers before the 2023 election. Next steps for you. We urge you to be counted among those who see possibilities and opportunities instead of just challenges in Nigeria. We urge you to see this request as a clarion call for change. We ask for your help to bring your friends, families, classmates, and neighbors in and sponsor an event like this. Thank you.
Naija, which way now?